Okay, so another good morning. I need to just mute my sound, but I want to welcome you for to this particular transmission. This is one of those rants. That's why it's a rant, and it's something that just comes up in my mind. It's something I think about, and I was just speaking to my good friend and brother Daniel Blackshaw. And Daniel Blackshaw, I owe this to you. And as we were speaking, the point came up, literally the question that you see, and that's the topic we're handling today. That's the topic I'm going to rant a little bit on, and that's the question: why or what causes genuine servants of God to drift into sorcery on the pulpit? Okay, what causes genuine servants of God to drift into sorcery on the pulpit? So I'd like you to invite a friend. I'd like you to tag someone because I will give you my speculative analysis based on experience, and it's not going to be a very long transmission. It's really designed to just get you thinking and talking. So here's the deal. Why would this happen? So let me begin by saying that there are two types of servants of God. There are those who are imposters, like from day one. They've never been genuine. They've never had a genuine salvation experience. They've never had an encounter with the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. They've never known who he is, and therefore he's not their master. They don't know him. There's that group. So those are literally magicians, sorcerers, and they have found a loophole in the church, in Christendom, and they come in as imposters and they pose as if they are pastors, but they're not. So there's that group, and that's not whom I am referring to here. I'm not talking about false prophets. I'm not talking about, in fact, that's not even their word. The right word would be fake prophets, because there are false prophets and then there are fake prophets. So these are fake. They've never ever known God in any way, shape, or form. So no, I'm not talking about those ones. I'm talking about people that start off genuine, people that actually had an encounter with God, people that have a testimony you can point at, people that had an encounter that led to a total transformed life, and people around them, family members, can point and say, yes, I recall at one point this gentleman was a drunkard, or was a womanizer, or was a drug addict, or whatever it is that they were doing before, and people saw that and they said, oh yes, this guy was lost. But then somewhere down the line, they get an encounter, they become saved, they start to serve God in whatever capacity, in whichever ministry, and people love them, people see that they're really growing, and then down the line, something happens and they change. And then they begin to practice what is clear sorcery, very visible sorcery. So what is sorcery, for those of you joining us this morning? Sorcery is, simply put, the manipulation of people's will and minds to serve an agenda. So normally the sorcerer is the one who casts spells. Okay, so they use spells, and using those spells, using methods that are learned, very powerful methods. I'll be sharing a lot of these things in my other series that's coming up very soon, what real Satanism looks like. You will certainly find that very interesting. And so they learn the art of influence and psychologically manipulating people. So they become very good at this. And sorcery is learned. The other time I was explaining to people that the difference between a witch and a sorcerer is that a witch is inherently born with these qualities and abilities. We'll talk about that another day. Whereas a sorcerer learns, they sit under teachers, they learn how to become a sorcerer. And they are taught all these different arts around, usually occult in nature, around how to manipulate people and to bring them under your control, to do your bidding and your will. That's what a sorcerer does. So what causes genuine servants of God to drift into sorcery on the pulpit? Answer: from the day you and I saved, we are buffeted with a number of things. Now, when one undergoes a genuine salvation experience, they are literally in the arms of God. They are taken, something profound happens to their persona within their hearts and souls, and that completely changes them. That's true. Now, what's interesting is that once they go through that, they now have to contend with the flesh. But it's not the only thing that they contend with. The Bible teaches us in the book of Ephesians, chapter 2, that there are actually three enemies that buffet any genuine child of God. The first enemy is the flesh. So this is the most potent enemy when it comes to our walk with God. The flesh is always on your case. It will eat you every day. It will fight you. In fact, your flesh never gets saved. Just know that. When you get saved, your spirit is created anew. You become a new creature in the spirit. Then your soul is in the middle, because your soul is your real you. That's where your mind, your emotions, your will sit. So the soul's in the middle. And then on the other hand is this flesh that you carry. It's not necessarily this body, even though this is a great embodiment of it, but it's really a component of your persona that the Bible calls the flesh. So this flesh remains on one side. And so from that point onward, you are at a battle. You can build your spirit or you can build your flesh. So the flesh contends with you every day of your life. And the stronger you are spiritually, the less the flesh will trouble you. But the weaker you are spiritually, the more the flesh will trouble you. So that's the first greatest enemy. The second enemy that you contend with is the world. And the world carries with it a system. The world has culture in it. It has systems in it. And those systems include, of course, money. It includes the general outlook and thinking of that particular community and all its teachings. These things are very, very powerful. For pastors, we have been taught, men of God, women of God, we've been taught that the three greatest enemies that come straight out of the world are obviously pride, which has to do with power, which has to do with authority, which has to do with fame, which has to do with influence. These are the things that the world throws at us. And when we reach a certain level, these things become stronger and stronger. So that component of fame, fortune, these things are massively a challenge. And of course, with fame and fortune come the women. So the females now come into the picture for pastors who are men, and these become a very big temptation. But the fame and fortune are bigger, in my view, bigger, greater temptation than even the women. And so these things are a big war. And then the third thing that obviously fights us is the devil himself. Now, let me very quickly, because I need to end this. So very quickly, what happens to many pastors is that as they begin to serve God, as they begin to do the work of God, they push in everything. They do everything. But somewhere down the line, a number of them find a plateau. They just don't see the results. And the sad part is that for many, many people in our circle, success is determined by numbers. Success is determined by influence. Success is determined by the kind of money and property and wealth you seem to gain in the process of doing God's work. And so if these things are not there, if every day you're struggling with the same stuff, it can become very wearisome. It can become very stressful. And for many pastors, this gets to a place where it starts to affect you. It starts to affect your zeal. It starts to affect your determination, your willingness to serve. And these things can become a loud noise in your heart. And if not careful, sooner or later you start getting into the comparison thing, and you look at your friends and you see certain ministers are already getting to a better place, and you're still stuck with whatever you're stuck with. And it's that stage that leads many to a point where sooner or later the whisper comes, why don't you go and see so-and-so? Why don't you engage so-and-so? They seem to be successful. And so if you're not discerning, it's that going to consult so-and-so and going to see so-and-so that sooner or later you find yourself in trouble. The saddest part is that for many, they look at what look like successful people and they say, I want to sit under such and such a person. And they buy into this theology that A greater person can't sit under a lesser person in terms of finance and influence. I think that's a big lie. It's one of the greatest lies I have heard, and I reject it completely. Those who bring you in spiritually will raise you up to where you can be raised. And if they've done a good work, then what will have happened is they'll have deposited what is necessary. And at that stage, you yourself, I myself, shall then transcend to the next level. In fact, I think the greatest glory of any parent is to see their child do greater than they ever did. So where this theology came that you can only submit to someone greater than yourself, it's very false. Because ask me, who does the greatest person up that ladder submit to? They submit to God, right? So you can't submit to God? You have to submit under a person, and they have to be higher than you? No. It is one of the greatest lies of current Christendom, and what it has done, it has led many pastors, colleagues, and friends to go seek powerful men and women of God to submit under, because they feel that where they're submitting, their pastor has reached the limit. That is a falsity, and it is the one that has led some to find themselves in the hands of sorcerers, to find themselves in the hands of wizards that are sitting and standing on pulpits. And once they've gone in there, when you go into sorcery and the occult, there are things that go on in there. There are currencies that are traded that most people have no idea and have no means and finance or even capacity to support. And so sooner or later, they're in sorcery. So now let's talk about sorcery. There are two ways sorcery is done on the pulpit. Number one, fakely, in other words, using just parlor tricks in order to manipulate and create a sense of power, but it's done fakely using what we call magic. But magic, just basic entertainment magic. So there's that. And then there's those who operate under real dark power from the pit of hell itself, figuratively speaking. So the ones who operate from fake magic are the ones who learn the tricks of how they can manipulate audiences. They go and gain all the necessary tools and equipment. They go and learn from those who've mastered the art of manipulating audiences, and then they employ those strategies in their meetings. A lot of the so-called papas and big pastors today use a lot of that. So they get people who work with them on the inside. They pay them money to falsify miracles, to collect telephone numbers and all this stuff. I mean, look, even I can do it. You see, that's how crazy sad it is. I can do it if I chose to do it, because that's pure manipulation, magic, and parlor tricks. And all you need to do is go sit and learn how to do the parlor tricks, then get the right team around you, and you can duplicate that so easily. If you get the right environment, get the right music, get the right lighting, everybody's going to be mesmerized, and you will be able to pull that off. I mean, secular people do that all the time in magic, hypnosis, tricks, and presentations. Now, the second one is the ones that use real, genuine dark power. They go and obtain that power from whoever they submit to, and they are taught what prices to pay for that. Now, what makes all these people do these things? Because they are looking for fame, they're looking for fortune, they're looking for power, and they're looking for everything that goes with such things. Fame, fortune, power. Okay? Fame is one that deals with being known everywhere. Fortune deals with money itself and cash, and power deals with the ability to control people. And these are the things that they look for, and they will pay for them. And I'll tell you something, I'm not going to go into the details, but there's a price to pay. I'm going to be doing a very intriguing series called What Real Satanism Looks Like. And that should be very eye-opening. I'm going to start off with just a write-ups on it, because I think the writings are so profound, and I'd rather stick with the writings. So what does real Satanism look like? One of the things about Satanism is powerful manipulation of the weak by the strong. And the strong use mind control and cognitive enhancement to manipulate the weak in mind. And so many of these pastors end up learning these things, and then they go and affect them, and then they see how they're able to control people, and that gives you a high that is very difficult to handle. So most of them end up going into deeper and deeper sorcery. So that's the reason. The reason is very simple. It's because they want to experience fame, They want to experience fortune, and they want to experience power. With these three things, everything else comes, whether it's women, whether it's property, money, you name it. It'll all come under these three things. And that's what drives many genuine servants of God into sorcery, because they are seeking these things. So tell me what you think. That's my view. Feel free to comment below and give me your views. This is really just me giving my take on this very interesting subject, and I will be waiting to hear from you. Remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, do not remember to subscribe and, of course, like and comment, and let's pick it up in the comment section. So for myself, thank you so very much for being part of this, and think about it deeply. If you are a pastor, by the way, before I exit, if you're a pastor and you've been serving God, and this is now the Holy Spirit that's just reminded me. I was just about to end this. If you're a pastor and you find yourself in this place, let me encourage you by telling you that God has a genuine reward for you, which is far superior than anything you'll ever get on this earth. If it is God's will that you prosper in certain ways and go on to be super rich and successful and famous, it'll be done. But don't you be one of those that is so hungry and so thirsty to be famous and powerful that you're willing to do anything to go that way, because the enemy will come and deceive you. I'm going to leave you with a movie you should watch, a very, very interesting movie made by the Willows called Prophet Suddenly. I would recommend you watch that. Yes, of course, Prophet Suddenly has typical Nigerian drama and exaggerations, but the general story is very real. Very, very real. And you want to watch Prophet Suddenly and use that as a way to think about yourself. I'll leave a link for the Prophet Suddenly video in the comments so that you can go watch that for yourself and see. But I tell you, many have been led astray. Many have been pierced with many sorrows because they sought to go after the so-called fame and fortune. Just stay away from it. Stay as a genuine servant of God. Serve God with everything and all you have. And God, in his own time, in his own way, will reward you. But you know the best part? The Bible tells me the blessing of the Lord, it makes one rich and he adds no sorrow to it. You'll never wake up one night looking behind, wondering what's coming, losing things in your family, worried about what could happen to you, because you are a righteous man, a righteous woman, doing that which the Lord has commanded you. Forget about this pursuing after the world, fame, fortune, and power, because they come at a terrible price. There's an exacting of a terrible price to seek such things outside the will of God. You will